Alright, what's up guys? We're ready to roll out another one. I'll show you guys what we got today. Okay, so today is going to be a little bit different. I don't have a specific project that I'm going to be going over with you guys. We are nearing the end of the year and we are absolutely slammed in the shop, but it's kind of all things that you guys have seen up to this point. So I'll show you guys kind of what's going on in the shop right now, just to give you guys an idea. And then the thing I want to do in this video is I kind of want to go over a few things that people have requested. There's a lot of requests that I've gotten in the comments that I think this is a good opportunity to maybe go over some of those things. We'll talk about those in a minute, but I just want to give you guys a look at what's going on in the shop right now. I hate to show you guys this, but it is kind of a mess in here. It's not what you guys are used to seeing, but it's the reality. So you can see we've got another roller pallet sitting on the table. There's also two more blanks sitting here. There's some more fork pockets. I got another mess over here. There's some of the rollers. There's a big pile of scrap on the floor. And there's a big pile of some plate that we've been using to cut out the back plates for these roller pallets. There are two roller pallets that are completed and ready to ship out. So after I made the video of the previous roller pallet design, they took it, they tested it, they used it, and then they got back to me and said, there are a few changes we'd like to make. This is what we want to do. They sent me an updated set of drawings and they said, we want you to send us a quote to build 7 more. So that's where I'm at now. I sent them the quote, they approved the quote, and they said we need them as soon as possible. So I'm trying to get these busted out as quick as I can. A couple of the changes that they made, they did make some changes to the profile on the side here, and this is just to help them with whatever process they use it for. They added these little notches right here. I believe these were added, these cutouts here. There's some handles that get welded on some of them. Some of them don't have handles. That's my main focus right now. I've got to get these done and out the door. There are 3 or 4 other jobs getting stacked up behind this one that I am getting ready to do. You guys will see a video. One of the little sneak peeks for you is this right here. This is a piece of bearing bronze, and we're going to take that and we're going to machine some bushings. So this is for a new customer, but I do think it's going to be a good customer. So the bushings are for a corporation that is quite large, so that could be another good thing. You always hope to get in with some of these larger corporations and have repeat customers that can, you know, continue to feed you work. Typically the pay is quite a bit better. It's just good work. Oh, somebody's sneaking in here. What's going on here?
No, I'm not. I just want to know where the drill is.
It's never good when the wife asks where the drill is.
Yeah, but with like a smaller...
With like a what?
Doozy.
I better get a smaller doozy for her. Stand by. Alright, we're back. So anyway, that's what's been going on, and that's also the reason why I don't have new content for you guys this week, because we've had a whole bunch of repeat customers that have needed more work done, which is a good thing for us, but it's not necessarily the most entertaining thing for you guys to watch. So now that that's out of the way, I just want to kind of go over my list, and we'll talk about a few things that people have commented on, people have requested on the channel, and we'll talk about a few of those things. So one of the first things that I want to talk about is I've gotten multiple requests to talk to you guys about how to bid, how I bid for work. I will go over some of the details with you on how I bid a job, but here's the problem with explaining how I bid a job. I do think it's a little different for every fabricator out there because there are so many variables that change what you would charge. One being your equipment. Depending on what kind of equipment you run, you're able to charge more money if you have nicer equipment. And I know that a lot of you are not going to agree with that, but it's the cold hard truth. The equipment can definitely help what type of product you turn out. Reason number two, skill level is another thing that changes what you would charge. And that is also partly what you're paying for, is my skills and my knowledge and my ability. Not every fabricator or welder has the same ability. There are some guys that they might be really comfortable with welding stick, but they're not as comfortable welding with TIG, or vice versa. So you've got to decide what your abilities are, and you need to create a baseline of what you're going to charge. The third thing I would say that affects what you can charge is location. Now, I'm lucky enough that I live in a location where I don't live in the city because I don't want to. I actually don't like the city. So I'm able to live outside the city, but I'm still close enough to the city that it's easy for me to get materials. And not only do I live outside the city, it's outside of a big city where I can get pretty much all the materials and equipment that I need within an hour's drive. That works out well for me and the customer because I don't feel like I have to charge more because those things are all readily available to me within an hour's drive. Now, if you lived out in the country and it was a longer drive for you to go pick up steel or gas for your welders or consumables or equipment, whatever it may be, you may have to charge more. Those are the three main reasons that I would say I can't just give you a number and tell you this is what you should charge if you're wanting to start your own welding business or side hustle or whatever. You've got to take a look at what kind of equipment you have, what kind of skills and ability you have, your location, and then you've got to base it off of what the market is around you. And that's another one of the pointers that I would give you guys. When I started doing my own thing, I started getting a hold of every welder that I could possibly think of, and I would ask them questions. Hey, what's your guys' going rate right now? What's your shop rate? What's your field rate? Then I would take and write that information down, and I would go back and I would kind of evaluate myself, my abilities, my equipment, and I would say, okay, I don't have near the equipment these guys do. I might not have as many years under my belt as these guys do, so I'm going to charge right here in the middle. Typically right now, I would say that welding and fabrication businesses are typically charging between, it could be anywhere between $75 to $150 an hour. It's honestly that broad. And a lot of it depends on all the things that I just talked about. Okay, so that being said, now I want to dive into the process that I use to bid a job. So we'll go into that now. Alright, so here's the process I use to do a bid or give someone a quote on a project. So the first thing I do, the very first thing I do, is I ask a lot of questions, because you'll find that most of the time the customer doesn't give all the details, and there's always hidden underlying things that you don't want to get surprised with in the middle of the project, and then you come to find out, oh, I forgot hardware, or they didn't mention this and now I've got to buy this material or whatever. So ask a lot of questions, take a lot of pictures, just do everything you can at trying to give yourself the best chance possible to succeed at the job. Okay, so ask questions. Number two, quote material, consumables, everything you need to do the project. You've got to include that in your quote. And so what I'll do is I will call my suppliers and I will get a quote on material. So, you know, like for this project here, one of the first things I did was I sit down and I take a notepad and paper. You could do it on the computer if you're that type of guy. I like to lay it all out on paper. I will start listing everything that I can think of that I'm going to need to complete the job. So I'll start with the material, the steel. and I'll say, okay, I'm gonna need a piece of 3/8 plate this big. You know, this was a unique one because I had to sub out the brake work on it, so I had to include that in my price. The crappy part about doing a quote for somebody is there's a lot of phone calls that have to be made. It's not my most favorite part, but if you're going to be accurate and if you're going to make money, you have to be willing to do that. So I called around, I got some quotes on some brake work, and I actually got the opportunity to walk through their shop and see their equipment, so I knew that it was going to be done right and it was going to look good when it was done. You don't want to go to Joe Schmo and pay them to do some brake work and they end up screwing up your part, over braking it, or not laying it out right, or whatever. So you want to do some groundwork and make sure that you choose somebody that's going to make you look good as well, because when you take this in and you drop it off, they're not thinking to themselves, well, the brake work is terrible. But that wasn't him. That wasn't Freedom Fab that did that. They don't care and they don't think that way. When you walk in and you hand them the finished product, there's only one guy they're going to be looking at if they're not happy, and it's you. So you want to make sure that you pick a subcontractor, if you have to do that, that is going to be reliable and that's going to do good, clean work. Keep that in mind as well. You price out material, you price out things like this, you know, sub work, write down everything. I will call these people numerous times a week. I'll call my steel supplier numerous times a week. They get to know you really well. And when you call, they're always really helpful to get you the pricing. They know what you're doing. You're getting quotes for all these jobs. And the sad truth of it is, you're probably only going to get about 25% of the jobs that you quote, which sucks because you take all that time to give people quotes, and then when they come back and they say, oh, that's a little more expensive than I thought, or I didn't realize it was going to cost that, or, you know, there's a lot of times where I'll say, well, this is what I've got to do to fix it right. Well, can't you just do this? Can't you just do that? I really struggle with the can't you just thing as well. Just to give you guys an example, if you've watched my video on the semi-trailer where I built the hitch on the back of the semi-trailer, that customer, originally, they wanted me to just take a piece of square tube and weld it between the frame with a receiver piece on the end of it and call it good. And I told them, absolutely not. I will not do that. If you want that done, that's fine, but I won't be the guy to do it. And I said, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right, and this is what it's going to cost you. Take it or leave it. That's the way it is. So they ended up saying, you know what? I actually respect that, and I'll just pay you what it costs. So I was upfront with them, and they respected that, and they ended up giving me the job because of that. So, you know, there's a lot of underlying lessons here that you guys can learn from me just because of what I've had to go through. So that's another one. You want to make sure that you're upfront with people. Don't skimp on a job, or don't cut corners on a job because that's what the customer wants. In my opinion, you're the professional. They're coming to you for a reason. If they come to you and they want work done, and then they say, well, I don't need all that, I just want this done. There are certain times where you could give a little on that. You want to be careful because that can be a slippery slope. You don't want to get yourself in trouble by cutting corners and not doing the job the way it should be done structurally, and something happens and now you're in trouble. So it's always a good idea to be the professional, build things structurally the way they need to be built. If the customer doesn't want to do that, that's fine. They can go down the road and they can probably find somebody that will do it cheaper. And in a lot of cases, they'll find somebody who will cut corners. It's sad to say, but it's the truth. They'll find a few people out there that will cut corners. They'll end up going the cheaper route. And I've seen it numerous times. They always end up coming back and they say, can you fix this now? So just keep in mind, stick to your guns, maintain a high level of quality, and you can't go wrong. Okay, so let's go back to how to quote. Okay, so I quote material, get all my pricing. I'll even get it right down to nuts and bolts. I'll call and I'll say, this is how many nuts and bolts I need. Give me a quote on this. They'll tell me, okay, it's going to be 350 bucks in nuts and bolts. Perfect. So I write that down. I write down the material. I write down If you've got to paint it, I write down paint. Okay, so you've got your materials and everything written down. As far as consumables go, like my welding gas and my wire, that is included in my price to weld. Then you've got to go through and you've got to figure out your labor. So, like I said, I'm not going to go into details on the price of what I charge because there's so many variables there. Once you know what you are going to charge per hour, then you've got to make an educated estimate on how many hours you think it's going to take you. And what I do is I basically will just go through the project in my head and I'll say, okay, I got to pick up the material, I've got to bring it home and cut the parts out, I've got to clean them up, then I've got to start fitting them, I've got to weld them out, I've got to do cleanup, and once all that's done, then I'll say, okay, it was this many hours, I'm thinking it's going to take me this many hours per piece. You know, like on this job where I have multiple of these to build, I broke it down into one piece. This is the price that it's going to cost me to build one pallet. And then I just times it by however many I need to build. Now, in a lot of cases, you could probably end up saving the customer some money because the more parts you get or the more parts you have to build, typically the price goes down a little bit because you get a better deal on bulk material and stuff like that. For something like this, where I can only get one piece cut out of a full 4x8 sheet of material, it just is what it is. I've got to cut it out of that, so that's what I've got to order, and that's what the customer pays for. Another thing you want to include in there is delivery. Is this something that you have to fabricate and then deliver to the customer? Or are they going to come pick it up? You know, if you're burning fuel, if you're doing all these things for free, you're never going to make any money. So you have to remember as many of these details as possible. So once I get that all figured up, I'll go through and I use QuickBooks myself. So I'll go through and I'll put it in QuickBooks. I have an actual professional looking document that I can send to the customer and say, this is my quote. It's got my business logo on it. It's got my contact info. They've got my email. So if they've got questions, they can always get back to me. That's the process that I use to send to a customer. Now, I will say that I do have 3 different prices. I've got a shop rate, I've got a field rate, and I do machining too, so I also have a machining rate. My machining rate is typically higher than my shop rate because machining is one of those things that takes a lot of money to get invested into. And like I said before, that's part of what the customer is paying for is your equipment. If they could do it themselves, they would. But they're coming to you because they need something done professionally with specialized equipment, which is one of the reasons that the price for machining is typically higher. Shop work is a little bit less than field work. That's because I'm in a nice air-conditioned shop. I have all my tools right here. They're all centralized. I have my cranes. Everything's here. It's easier for me to build it in the shop. If I do those things out in the field, you charge more because it requires more effort, requires more specialized equipment, and so that's typically why field work is more expensive. I hope that gives you guys kind of an idea on why I charge the way I charge and how I send a quote or price out a job. I hope it helps you guys out. I hope it makes you understand kind of the process. I also hope it helps you understand why professionals charge what they charge. I've invested pretty much my whole life savings into what you see on my channel. I'm doing that in hopes that I can better my lifestyle and my situation in the future. It's an investment up front that I'm hoping will eventually pay off. And I can honestly tell you guys, I'm starting to see those things pay off. I can promise you, take it from me, as somebody who has spent a large portion of my time, my money, my effort into investing into something like this, if you can be dedicated and disciplined enough to do that, eventually you will see you will see a return on that. You will start seeing the blessings and the benefits and the product of hard work if you're willing to do those things. And it's not easy, and it's not for everyone. Anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there. So I hope that helps you guys. I hope that gives you an idea on how to be successful when you're giving someone a quote, how to make money. I'm not saying that my methods are perfect, and I'm not saying they're the best out there, but they work for me. I can honestly tell you that I have been bit before. Part of the reason that I do things the way I do them is because I have been bit. I have been screwed before. There's been jobs where I didn't bid them right, and I ended up losing money over it. So those are the ones that you remember, that you learn from, and you make sure you don't do it again. There are times where it's just really hard to bid something, and if you have a job where it's really hard to bid, it's always a good idea to shoot a little high. You don't want to be the guy that ends up getting awarded the job, and they award you the job because you're the cheapest, but it's because you forgot to add something into your bid, and now you're stuck doing it, but you're not making hardly any money on it. So hopefully that helps you guys out. So I hope this wasn't boring. I hope you guys got something out of it. I hope you enjoyed it. I think that's going to wrap this one up. I hope that answered some of your guys' questions. I'll continue to try to make it through the list of requests from the comments section. I know this was a quick one, but hopefully this is some good stuff that you guys want to see as well. I know it's not quite as exciting as seeing some of the projects in the shop, but we're trying to get caught up in some of these bigger jobs. So thanks for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, and share. We'll see you on the next one. The other thing that's going on is I do have like 3 or 4 jobs stacked up that I'm getting ready to do. I do have 3 or 4 other jobs. Goodness. In a lot of instances, the equipment can. I worked for 10 years for a local freedom. Goodness. So those are the 3 main things that I would say are gonna, those are the, all right. I just got interrupted again. Just do everything you can to try to give yourself the best chance at succeed. Oh, I didn't realize it was gonna cost that. I didn't realize. I've got to pick up the material. I've got to. So in my. So I break it down into one. I also hope it helps you understand why professionals. I also. Goodness, can't talk. So hopefully that guy's goodness.